Hi everyone, and welcome to my day 3 wrap-up of the Risk Awareness Week. If you're watching this on the conference website, thank you for watching. If you're watching this on social media, don't forget that right now, all of this week, tomorrow and Friday, at 2022.riskawarenessweek.com, there's a conference, and you can still catch about a dozen workshops still to go, and you can always rewatch all the replays of the previous workshops. You can still ask questions to the speakers because speakers can see online and they'll respond. They respond in writing. So day 3 was dedicated to different applications of quantitative risk analysis. In day 1, we talked about how quantitative risk management is the way to go. In day 2, we talked about how neuroscience, kind of what can we learn from neuroscience that affects how humans make decisions under uncertainty, affects how people identify risks, and affects how people assess and judge risks. And this day 3, is all about borrowing from another underlying science that is kind of the root of risk management, and it's called probability theory. Tomorrow, there'll be a little bit more on decision science. Tomorrow and Friday is about decision science. So the kind of the final pillar of risk management. So imagine risk management, and it has 3 pillars: probability theory, neuroscience, and decision science. At least in kind of my mind. You probably can think of other pillars, and by the way, write in the comments. So since it is live, and I know you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and on the conference website, it makes me feel very, very nice when you write and say hello in the comments. Don't be shy. Say hello in the comments. By the way, just today, I finally received my Risk Manager of the Year award from Firma and Commercial Risk. Very nice. For another month, I'm still the best risk manager in Europe, supposedly. But if you want to find out why I got this award and why our whole team was also awarded a special prize in US from RIMS, I actually did a workshop on that today. So if you missed it, just go to the website, to the conference website, and watch the replay of my workshop. I try to kind of give a very concise picture on what we do that helps us save a lot of money. Thank you, Abdullah. Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate it. Thank you, someone else from LinkedIn. I don't see your name. I just see a LinkedIn user. I don't know, for some weird reason, it shows me some names, but it doesn't show me the other names. So as I do at the end of every day, I have 2 objectives. Objective number 1 is I can answer questions and provide additional insights, or help you navigate to the right workshop. Because, for example, like you would say, I want to learn about some so and so, and I can say, well, you need to watch this workshop, or you need to register for this workshop that is in the future. That's my number 1 objective. My number 2 objective, so for number 1 objective, ask your questions. Ask any topic that you want to have a conversation about. And if we don't have a workshop around that, maybe we'll have it in Risk Awareness Week 2023. Thank you, Aaron, as well. And my number 2 objective for these daily sessions that I do at the end of each Risk Awareness Week day is to help you prioritize your replays. So we had 7 workshops today, and rather than you can go to the replays page, and you can kind of see which workshops got more votes. And by the way, if you watched the workshop and you liked it but you didn't upvote it, go back, upvote it, because it really helps the other audience, the other 4,000. And I can't remember, did I mention that we're just under 4,000 registrations for the Risk Awareness Week, just under. So if you're watching online on the social media channels, and you haven't signed up at the Risk Awareness Week, do sign up to watch all the other workshops, because I only broadcast my daily um, my daily sessions and only a few selected workshops. Next week, I may broadcast kind of the most upvoted workshop from each day. So you kind of you would want to upvote workshops from that. So rather than going from most popular to least popular, I actually try to position all the workshops into some sort of logical narrative where we start with the introduction, the theoretical aspects, and kind of go into practical. Well, how do you actually do that? Like, what sort of problems can you solve with this? So I did exactly the same for today. Today, my recommendation is to start with either of the two. Either Sam Savage's session, which by the way just finished, so it was last in the day, but I think you should start with it. Either start with Sam Savage's session or Justin Schnell's session, because these are very nice introductory sessions into moving from qualitative risk management to quantitative, and driving a very important message on how some risk managers are generators, some risk managers are users, and you need to almost like create this center of excellence within, and this is, I completely share that view as well. In my opinion, the future of risk management is that organizations will have the center of competence for dealing with uncertainty, dealing with probabilities, dealing with distributions, dealing with uncertainties, and it will be a center of competency with some generators and some users. And Justin's workshop is a very nice illustration on how they are attempting to do just that at the very large U.S. manufacturing pharmaceutical company. Um, so have a look at those workshops. They're very nice starting point to kind of to appreciate the overall message on how to move your organization towards quantitative risk analysis. Then the second block that I've put 3 workshops into, I called kind of how, the technical aspects, what techniques, what concepts, like what do you need to know to actually do quantitative risk analysis. And here I recommend starting with Tom Keelan's presentation on metalogs, because that is the probably one of the easiest and yet mathematically sound way of converting your existing incident data, claims data, loss data, historical observations, basically converting any historical data that you may have in your organization, and you would be surprised how much data you actually have in your organization, converting that into distributions that you can then take and plug into any model anywhere in the company to help the decision makers make better decisions. So metalogs, again, I'm very honored to have Tom speak at the Risk Awareness Week. This is his first presentation. Sam Savage has been talking about metalogs at Risk Awareness Week ever since 2019, and this is by all means, like, this is the future of risk management. I think the future of risk management is SIPs that Sam Savage is talking about, and metalogs for the risks that have a lot of historical or sufficient historical data. When actually, I should correct myself, because immediately somebody will say, "Oh, we don't have a lot of data." Well, you don't need a lot of data; you just need some. And most organizations on the planet, well, actually, I think we should be honest with ourselves. Every organization on the planet has enough data to generate a meta log. So number 3, go with Tom Keelan's session. Number 4, I thought was very interesting, and by the way, people loved it as well that watched the sessions today, was David Vos' session on risk appetite and tolerance. This is a concept that just gets thrown around a lot, and I think David did kind of a nice step to creating some clarity around the concept and actually using it as something practical and meaningful, not just a statement in risk appetite statement that you get the board to sign once a year. Then then the next fifth workshop. Let me quickly check. Hold on. And while I'm checking and while my page is loading, do write your comments, ask your questions. If you've seen those workshops, let me know what you thought. Okay, my number 5 is Graham Keith. He talked about bow ties versus influence diagrams. So these two techniques, just for everybody's understanding, like whenever you're moving to quantifying risks, the world basically is kind of divided into two big buckets. There's usually a predetermined model or methodology for modeling a certain risk. For example, in a credit risk, there's like books and legislations on how to model that risk. You don't need to recreate the wheel. You just kind of um, follow the methodology. But then there are some risks or some problems that don't have a predetermined industry accepted solution. And so whenever you don't have a predetermined industry accepted solution, the bow ties and influence diagrams are the two techniques that you would go to. Um, Graham touched very nicely on the two techniques. And by the way, if you want to deep dive into influence diagrams, because I know David Graham focused more on bow ties this year, but if you want to deep dive into influence diagram, and make no mistake, bow ties and influence diagram, a must-know technique for anyone in risk. Compliance risk, legal risk, environmental risk, operational risk, like cyber risk, anything you can think of goes really well on the either bow tie or an influence diagram. Um, so in case you want to deep dive into influence diagrams, just watch Graham's session at Risk Awareness Week 21, 2020, and 2019, because all of the workshops are still available forever. That's the beauty of conferences in the 21st century. So Graham's session is number 5 in my book, and number 6 is kind of the last two sessions. I grouped them into the kind of the area where we talk about like where where do we apply these techniques. So the first is introduction, the second is kind of the theory behind the techniques and the methods we need to quantify risk, and then the final two workshops are all about, well, practical application. And the number 6, I recommend Michelle Hasbrook, factoring geopolitics into risk-based decision making. So that's just one specific application of quantitative risk analysis in a particular problem area of geopolitics. So very relevant right now, worth a watch, highly recommend. And then the final 7th workshop, I recommend my workshop, which I did earlier today, where I talked to how we build a tailor-made model, again, using exactly the same logic as a bow tie, and we build a model specifically designed for insurance renewals, and actually illustrated the case study where our company saved $3 million per year on one of the insurance lines, on marine cargo insurance, um, by following that logic. And we consistently done the same on other lines, except D&O, which is my most hated insurance type in the world, because it's completely uneconomically priced. It's just there's no math, there's no logic behind how D&O is priced. um, so these are the workshops for the day. I am going to start responding to the questions, so do send them in. Thank you, Joseph, already for sending in your question. Let me read it and respond to it. Um, so first point, do look into influence diagrams. What an amazing, powerful technique for risk managers. It's a prerequisite. And by the way, it's very easy to find out more about it. You don't have to Google, because tomorrow, let me just quickly check. Tomorrow, Max Henrion from Lumina. Yes, tomorrow morning, Max Henrion is doing a workshop. If you are, I don't know, Joseph, where you are based, but if you are not in Europe, then it will be night for you, and then you could just watch the replay when you wake up. He will illustrate how to use influence diagrams, because that's the prerequisite for modeling. You first build it, like you draw a picture of the model on the piece of paper, and then you convert that into a mathematical model in Excel or some software that you use. So I highly recommend that. And now to your question, um, anyone who insists on having a risk register should actually be using a bow tie diagram. Okay, so I very much recommend you watch my first session, which is called The Future Trends of Risk Management 2. I did that on Monday. Just watch it in the replays. And or you can watch it on Risk Academy YouTube channel. By the way, if anybody is watching right now, hello, and say hello. And don't forget to you can join the YouTube channel as a member. That really helps me going around and recording new videos and constantly publishing content. Um, that there are basically three levels of risk analysis. I call it basic, standardized, and advanced. And for example, building a purpose-built model specifically for insurance, that's advanced. Um, deep diving into a specific risk is a bow tie. And a risk register is a basic level, and you can actually convert your existing risk register to a quantitative risk register or a stochastic, same thing, quantitative risk register. And the point I was making on Monday is that each of these three levels solves different problems. And if your objective is to understand what your expected losses, unexpected losses, what's your tail risk, how much do you need to budget for risk, how much you need to allocate for mitigation, then the risk register at the basic level is sufficient as long as it's quantitative. And for that, you can kind of like if the only problems you're trying to solve is risk reporting and getting the expected unexpected losses, then that's it. You're fine. You don't need anything else. But then if you want to start talking about optimizing controls, control effectiveness, different options to mitigate, effective mitigation, residual risk. By the way, you can't do a residual risk at the risk register level unless quantitatively, unless it's just pure subjective, which kind of why would you the whole day yesterday we talked about how cognitive biases affect our subjective judgments, and they're not very trustworthy. They're deceiving more than anything. And so if you want to deep dive into a risk, then you would do a bow tie. So my approach would be I would have a risk register, even though most of the time I actually didn't have risk register because I actually did advanced models for most of the problems I was solving in the work. But if I needed to do a risk register, I would do a quantitative risk register, and then I would select like the top 5 risks, and then I would create bow ties for these five risks. By the way, top 5 risks I would actually select based on their var, not on their color or word or number. So I would actually rank risks properly. I would build a tornado diagram that that helps prioritize risks appropriately. So I hope I answered your that question. Any other questions? Anything else you want to find out about Risk Awareness Week or upcoming workshops? So for influence diagrams, again, I highly recommend Max's session, which is tomorrow morning European time, and you can watch it in replay if it's too early or too late for you. Any other questions? Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Joseph. Yeah, my first session on Monday, I recommend watching it. I'll be producing a lot more content on the kind of the 3 levels of risk analysis because I think it's very important. One of the biggest problems I observe in risk management is when risk managers are trying to solve problems with unsuitable tools. So risk register is fine as long as it's not qualitative risk register. Qualitative risk register is not risk management. Let's just kind of park that and move beyond that. Quantitative risk register is fine because it solves four important points. Four important things. It gives you expected losses, it gives you unexpected losses, it gives you the tail, it gives you the prioritization. But that's about it. You can't really talk about mitigations, residual, effective controls. None of that is a discussion at the basic level. But then once you move into the bow tie diagram level, then suddenly you open up to this additional insights that you can use. And then some problems are just solvable at the at the advanced level where you just need to build a purpose. Like you still build an a bow tie or an influence diagram to begin with, but then you move on to modeling because you actually need proper insights. So highly recommend that. Thank you, Mohammed, for your comment. Well, Zurpat, hi, long time no see. I it's a weird way the way you phrased the question. So let me try and understand what you mean. So nobody on the planet should use qualitative risk registers. Nobody on the planet. Like unless you're really into horoscopes and tarot cards, nobody should ever use qualitative risk registers for anything. And so is compliance any different? No, no, they're just like everybody else. They should also not use a qualitative risk register. Uh, they can and should use a quantitative risk register, and it just happens, again, complete coincidence, that we actually developed a whole methodology how to use bow ties and quantify bow ties for compliance risk. So we actually had a compliance risk register, quantitative, where risks were prioritized by their VAR, and we used bow tie as the foundation of the quantification. Yes, they still. Well, I mean, of course they would. I mean, compliance don't have the competency to quantify risks. I mean, that's unfortunate reality. Um, can we still make this conclusion? What conclusion? What do you mean? So I have a whole article on the methodology for compliance risks, and um, me and Archer, we even converted it into like a web game where you play a game, and if you win, you get this like compliance risk methodology. Um, I don't know. Let me see if I can quickly find it. Do do continue asking questions, and I'll try and find that game and give you the link. Any other comments, questions? Okay, I found it. Still not 100% sure what you mean in the question, but I think we're on the same page. Yes, Doug Hubbard, who is also a speaker at the Risk Awareness Week, and he did his workshop on Monday to quantitative values. Yeah, exactly. And you see, because behind quantitative risk management are three underlying sciences, um, and probability theory is one of them. Whenever any of us talk about converting a risk register to quantitative risk register, we almost always mean the same math, the same underlying methodology, because there's only kind of one probability theory. So in fact, Doug Hubbard, the approach he proposes is exactly the same approach that I talk about. So yes, and Zurpat, it's very important. It's not the calibration. That's a separate piece that Doug is promoting, but he also has a risk like a sample template of a risk register where you can enter frequencies or I can't remember. I think he uses Bernoulli and PERT to create a quantitative risk register. Creating a quantitative risk register is actually really, really, really simple. And some software packages like Archer do it like at the push of a button. It's if you already have a risk register, it's actually super easy to convert it, almost automatically convert it into quantitative. You will then, caveat, you will then realize that your risk register was really bad, because once you start seeing that quantitative, you realize what a mess it is, and how unreasonably humongous or not sufficiently big your risk exposure is, and then you start adjusting it and making it better. Okay, let me post on LinkedIn as well. Hold on, hold on, done. Now you can see the link to the game as well. All right, any more questions? Let me check conference website. No, don't see any questions there. All right, well, thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow. Don't miss all the workshops from tomorrow. If you check out the remaining program, and I bet you will find a couple of workshops that will be an amazing addition to your risk management skill set. So enjoy Risk Awareness Week. Enjoy all the workshops that finished, and you can watch the replay. That's the beauty of Risk Awareness Week. The replays are available forever. In fact, some of the replays from 2019 are still as relevant today as they ever were. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you. Bye.